Greetings and bienvenue, Midnight Crew. Thank you for returning to this broadcast, and welcome to new viewers joining us for the first time. If you like a video, then feel free to subscribe.
Cave people. They live underground for whatever reason. They navigate through vast tunnel networks spanning the whole Earth. People go missing around national parks because they are either taken or discover an entry point into the real Earth deep underground. Disprove it.
They prefer to be called troglodytes. It's fancier that way. Hard to disprove a proven fact, though. Cave folk have been known for ages. They are pretty diverse, though, depending on how hard inbreeding hits a given population. You might have a cave network filled with blind, pale, white eyeless shambling things that hunt normies for food, and 100 miles away you'll have a cave network of kindly hairballs who rescue lost kids in the woods and carry them back to civilization via their tunnels. It all depends on the culture.
We had a kid in class whose mom was an orphan found near a logging site in Lithuania in the 60s by lumberjacks. She was 2 years old when they found her, so she couldn't ever explain where she was originally from, so they just put her in the system of Soviet orphan care. She still managed to grow up into a normal enough person and have a family. I'm writing about her here because she was definitely a cave dweller. Crowley crawled out from one of the caves the region is peppered with, or maybe the others threw her out for some unknown reason. She was a super small, super slim lady with really pale skin, eyes like an Asian person, really squint-like, and almost pinkish hair. I mean, they were red, but like pale red. Never found a race of humans that had those features. Trogs have their own races down there.
Cool thread anon. Did you know that the Squatch is a semi-cave person? That's why they are ever elusive and so hard to find and film. They know all the secret spots that lead back into the safety of the cave network. I once encountered a Squatch that just disappeared underground. Where it stood, I found a large boulder with signs that it might have been moved recently. So that old Squatch literally jumped into a cave entrance and blocked it off with a rock. But Squatches aren't the only thing living in those them caves, I reckon. No, sir. One last thing, I never been to USA, I'm a Euro-anon, but I know a guy who's a professional ultrasound engineer, and he basically been to the US as part of his education in an expedition to collect sonographic data of something called the Mammoth's Cave system you Americans have in some rural area of some state yonder. Basically, as he explained, he collected the data, then started kinda dividing it into different channels like a DJ does with his music tracks. He stumbled upon a certain sound almost unhearable and played along with the rest of the data. And that sound he found was exactly like the sound of a Squatch roaring, which I had recorded in the woods. So yeah, there is a cave system that connects Eastern Europe with the USA, and Squatches freely migrate from one continent to the other. What Columbus did for us surface folk, the Squatches long had man. Hence the illustrious and mysterious Yeti of Nepal and Papabava legend from Tanzania. They are basically all one critter known as the terror monkey, better known as Squatch or Sasquatch or Bigfoot. But what do I know? I'm just a seasoned hiker and Squatch scientist, so maybe I just made that whole thing up, right? That's what they want y'all to think of, you ungrateful fools. You know what cave paintings are, yeah? Primitive men made those on cave walls when we were still dumb and couldn't build houses, yeah? So some ask me why there is no cave painting of a Squatch in none of them caves. 'Cause you know, if there were Squatches in ancient Europe, people would draw them on cave walls, right? Well, how about this little factoid? Every cave that has cave paintings also has, you guessed it, ancient calcified Squatch prints. Those beasts tore down the cave paintings that depicted them like the violent marauders they are, so that we have no proof of them existing in the vast cave netherworld below our feet.
In the deepest tunnel systems are born and bred generations of children who never live to see the light of day. Their skin is very translucent, and their pupils are very large and black because of the scarce lighting. The system calls them the mole children, or the black-eyed children. Their main job is that they are slaves to underground giants. There have been issues with them coming up to the surface, similar to the problems divers have when surfacing too quickly, except instead of nitrogen, these individuals get too much oxygen and it can cause problems for them.
Okay guys, no joke, the cave people are a menace. I'm no scientist, at least not according to mainstream shill science, but here is what I can say on the matter. There are vast interconnected cave networks that span the globe. This underworld had a fair share of civilizations that came and were then gone, sort of like we had with Romans, Greeks, and other bullshit sand nations. You get me? Here are some of the cibias that lie down in the caves. Squatches, better known as Bigfoot. They are cave-dwelling monkey men that sometimes get up to the surface to hunt and eat berries. Cannibalistic goblinoids, source for all myths of little men like fae, gnomes, elves, and shit. These are little sharp-toothed creatures that pop out to grab a snack, and by snack I mean a hiker or a baby. The Darrow, an ancient, highly spiritual underground civilization that precedes humanity. They had robots, cars, laser beams, but they turned into degenerates. Tarot, sort of an offshoot of the Darrow branch. They were also an advanced civilization, but they were more evil, I guess. The Trogs, basically savage people. Due to all manner of weather effects, starvation, war, etc. Whole populations of normal surface folks had to migrate into cave networks and live down there for generations, drinking cave dew and eating mushrooms. Now they are these blind, lanky pieces of shit that hunt you in the night with bone spears and rock tools. They are brutal and ruthless. You shoot them on sight or you get your neck sliced off. The Greys. Some of the gray aliens that patrol Earth have outposts underground. They use it for long-term stay and for human experimentation. Mole men and rat men. Animal-human hybrids that prefer the dark and dank tunnels of inner Earth. Indians. Yeah, there are Indians under there, especially under Nepal and Tibet. Basically, they are just normal Indians who pray hoping to one day reach enlightenment. Big spiders. They are basically just big spiders that spawn around heat vents underground. They are a menace, though I've heard they taste amazing, but you have to watch out for venom sacs in their flesh. They can stop your heart. Lizard men. Basically remnants of a super old conflict. Back when proto-humans warred against lizard men, nukes were first invented and used, causing a great extinction. Now survivors of this great civilization of lizard men live underground. They are brutal, primitive degenerates that forgot how advanced they were once. Though some of them have secret data science cults around ancient AI that teaches them skills their predecessors. One of such cults is currently based in LA. Giants, Nephilim, fallen angels of God who were cursed to dwell in the Underdark. These bad boys carry flaming weapons forged out of sacred metal and love to kill. Imagine a troop of screwed-up Vietnam vets with PTSD but immortal and fully armed.
Religions and cultures around the world talk constantly about them. Do they truly live underground? Was it the flood? Do you also recognize any of these? They used to roam the earth alongside us long ago, but I don't know what happened. And the Greys used to make us stuff for a price, I think. Like telling them to do 100 pure oxygen rocks and they did it.
Different anon here. Yes, many cultures talk about these underground humanoids. Yes, they connected to the flood and the civilization that spanned the world before the deluge came. The biblical narrative is generally correct here. Thousands, maybe tens of thousands of years ago, angels came down from the heavens and bred with human women. They produced sons of a great stature. These were the first giants, or Nephilim. These fallen angels, which we call demons, and their offspring the giants came to rule the various primitive human civilizations dotting the earth. They brought with them sensitive secrets, hidden knowledge about creation. They make great wonders and build many magical technologies. God pronounced judgment against the Nephilim and demons, because they had corrupted the world and all of mankind. God promised this civilization they had built would be brought down by warfare and great catastrophe and finally a flood of water. The demons to be imprisoned and the spirits of the Nephilim to haunt the earth until judgment befalls them. The flood comes and destroys this civilization and humanity has a chance to rebuild. The Nephilim survived but no longer had power. We hunted them over the face of the earth. They fled into the highest of mountains, the thickest of woods, the deepest of caves to escape us. Some Nephilim became Bigfoot, some became the ashen white crawlers, and some bear the names of men and are among them even now. As the ages draw to a close, they grow restless and know that judgment draws near. Spirits and things in the night, wicked men in high places, the cave dwellers are an ancient enemy, and the aliens are their fathers, the fallen angels of old.
Good point, friend. While the history of the Squatch is murky indeed, there is something of Nephilim and their genipool. I mean, did you see how huge they are? They would kill a silverback gorilla in a boxing match any day, any time. And they have a malevolent conscience of sorts. Have you by any chance read the confession of that one hunter who was captured by cave-dwelling Squatches and only escaped due to his cunning and some snuff he had? They were described like sentient hairy giants with inhuman strength, which sounds a lot like a savage Nephilim to me.
It was a Saturday night and I was hanging out at the bar with my friends having a great time. We were all talking about how our lives have been since we last saw each other a few years ago. They all told me how they got some boring good-paying jobs, but I'm right where I want to be at. I do photography and fell in love with it when I was a kid. It took me a few years to get above average pay, which was a pain, but I still love what I do. We all exchanged numbers later that night and left. Walking to my car, I got a text from my boss about a new project he wants me to do. The theme was nature, and I was lucky since my house is right next to a forest. I responded that I was down to do this project. It was really late at night, around 2 a.m., and I decided to go into my backyard and see where I will be going tomorrow. Draco, my 4-year-old lab, was barking and whining to go outside. I got some food for him so we could relax in the backyard. I was on my phone scrolling through my social media apps, minding my own business, until Draco began to viciously bark towards the woods. "Draco, come over here." I yelled out. He ran back towards me quickly as a rabbit. I could tell he was in fear of what he had seen. I began to comfort him and investigated the woods to see if I could see what was scaring him. All I saw were 6 bright white dots looking toward me, but I couldn't make out what it was. It must have been the raccoons. They're always out by my house and the woods. I shouted out to the things to go away, but they did not budge. Draco and I went back inside, and I kept a close eye on the woods the whole way. We went to bed because it was late and I had to see my boss in the afternoon. I woke up and looked around because I had an ugly sense that someone was watching me. I looked at Draco and he had a dead stare looking out the window. I slowly turned my head towards the door to see the same bright white dots, but I could make out that they were the eyes of some creature, not a raccoon, but something else. They slowly started to fade away into the darkness. I turned to the other side of my bed and saw them right in front of me. They looked like tall humans, but it was too dark to see any other details. They suddenly jumped at me, and that's when I woke up. This is all just a terrible nightmare. I brushed it off and went to feed Draco before I left to see my boss. For some odd reason, Draco would just stare at the woods for a few good minutes, then just go back to laying down. I couldn't investigate because of time, so I laughed and made my way to work. My boss Derek told me to meet him at a coffee shop near my house so we could talk about what he wanted some pictures of. "I need you to get some good shots of our forest. I know you live in one basically, so this shouldn't be hard," he said. I left and went to get ready for the job. I had to stop at a store to get the right lens for this job in particular. Hopefully, the nighttime shot can be quick because I don't feel safe going in there alone. By the time I found the right lens, it was already 5 p.m. and daytime began to fall into the night. The sunset looked amazing, so I snapped a shot. On my way home, I was wondering how Draco was doing. I mean, why would he keep staring outside for a few minutes before laying down? Was there someone out there? When I got home, Draco was sleeping, and it seemed as if everything was the same as I had left it. I let Draco outside and I went to take some shots of the forest before nighttime hit. I got a good 30 pictures of just random things and decided to take good ones tomorrow with more sunlight. Since it was already nighttime, I decided to take the night pictures today to get them over with. I had a fear of stepping in the woods ever since I had that nightmare last night, but it was my job and I needed to get it done quickly. I went back to the house to let Draco inside and to get my other lens for the night shots. It was 8 p.m. and the light of the sun disappeared while night struck the sky. The stars were out and I had to get a good angle with the trees and have the stars in the background. I walked a little further and saw a trail leading down. I went over and noticed it led to a massive cave. It was dark and the only source of light that I had was the flashlight from my phone. I flashed over to the cave to see if I could see anything before I went inside. I wanted to look around first. As I was walking away, I heard the sound of something moving inside the cave. It sounded as if it was getting closer and trying to leave the cave. I did not want to know what was coming up from inside, so I ran down the trail to where the campers are normally. When I got there, I went up to the man I see every day. "Hey, I know you don't know me, but do you know about that cave back there down the trail?" I said to him, out of breath, waiting for a response. "What do you want to know about it?" he asked very confusedly. "I work for a photography company and I want to take some pictures inside there. But I heard something moving around. Do you know anything about it?" I asked him. If you're going in there for some pictures, then you might as well take your death photo while you're at it," he said, seeming mad. I just shrugged and went back to the cave to take a few pictures and leave. On my way there I tripped on something and fell over. I turned my flashlight on to see what I had stepped on. It was a large footprint. It had to be roughly 20 inches long. It led to the cave along with several other footprints. I knew there was something big and I had to get a picture of it. I made my way to the cave entrance. Inside it was dark and silent. Just the beat of my heart echoed through the large cave. I took a single picture with a flash on. I checked the picture and put the exposure up to see where the next entry will be. I went to the opening on the right and took another picture and did the same as the last time. When I checked the picture I saw the bright white eyes, and when I put the exposure up I could see humanoid figures standing there watching me. I looked into the darkness and they were standing right in front of me. I had to look up at them and I didn't move a single muscle. Something behind them fell down. The sound of rocks falling over. The eyes turned around and behind them were more bright white eyes popping out of nowhere. I went back to where I came from until I saw the dim light from outside. When I made it out I ran straight to my house and called my boss immediately. I sent him the picture and he was in shock at what I got a hold of.
In 1977, a woman in Henderson, Nevada, claimed that her 13-year-old son and friends had gone out to explore in the area of Black Mountain, which has many scattered abandoned mines and caves. They hiked out across the desert landscape and climbed the foothills of the mountain until he found a cave. The narrow entrance forced them to crawl on their stomachs, using their pocket flashlights to chase back the oppressive darkness within, and they eventually came to a circular room about 9 feet across. There they found a pit in the ground, which had a crude ladder. As they explored the room, they heard what sounded like voices and the far-off humming of some sort of machinery. Looking around further, they apparently came across a rusty metal door deeper in an adjacent tunnel, with a rod of some sort lying nearby, which seemed to be made of some kind of aluminum-like material and with engravings on the side. As they examined the rod in the strange doorway, they heard guttural voices approaching and decided to hurry to the entrance from which they had come, taking the bizarre rod with them. As they approached the entrance, they then heard what sounded like the door they had seen creaking open, after which there was an ominous growl as a greenish humanoid creature began to emerge from the cave. The boys then turned and ran as fast as they could from this place, later telling CH about the strange incident and showing her the rod they had found. It seems the lizard man creature apparently wanted it back. That evening as the boys slept, something very strange happened. CH would recount of the sequence of surreal events.
It must have been around 2 in the morning when my son shook me, whispering harshly that someone was trying to get into his bedroom window. I hoped it was just a nightmare, or his nerves were still on edge. Quietly we slipped into his bedroom and listened to the sounds of scraping at the window edge. He was not mistaken. In the light of the moon I could make out the silhouette of the head and shoulders of a man. I was alone with my 4 kids, no husband to protect us, so I grabbed my flashlight, suddenly tossed the curtains open to face the man. There was a glare from the flashlight on the window, but past the glare I could clearly see a large head with ridges on the top, other ridges on his cheekbones, and the glow of golden eyes. My son and I stood still, unmoving. Both fear and shock kept us frozen. The lizard man didn't move either, his hand still poised in his attempt to pry the window open. His hand was large, with webbed rough, gnarly-looking fingers, with powerful claws. After a couple minutes, not seconds, but long agonized minutes with our hearts pounding, I knew I had to do something. One hand still holding the flashlight beam on his face and my eyes still locked into those golden eyes. I fumbled around in the dark with my other hand, hoping to find something to use as a weapon, is needed. He glanced at my hand, looked back into my eyes. He turned his head a little, as if he was asking a question. He slightly opened his lipless mouth, displaying 4 of his pointed teeth, and suddenly he turned and ran off into the desert.
She would later surmise that the bizarre creature had come for its rod, and so she and her husband and son decided that they would return it to the cave in order to avoid another encounter. They hiked all the way out to the area where the boys said they had found it and put the object by the cave entrance. According to the report, they just left it there and headed back, and there is no further mention of what happened after that or if the irate lizard man came for them again or not.
I hope that you enjoyed tonight's broadcast. If you enjoyed tonight's story, then please subscribe to the channel as more green texts will appear daily. A new broadcast will appear when the clock strikes midnight Central Time.
Remember to check out the Odyssey page in the description for a second archive of the channel's videos.